and welcome to a new vlog and trip report. Today we're traveling from Salzburg to Munich. Here on the map you can see our route today, and of course we're gonna take a closer look at the route in the animation. We're starting at Salzburg main station, crossing the border into Germany, and then we have a first stop in Freilassing, followed by further stops in Teisendorf, Traunstein, Bergen, Übersee, Bernau am Chiemsee and Prien am Chiemsee, followed by Bad Endorf and Rosenheim, and from Rosenheim we're going non-stop directly to Munich East, where I'm leaving the train, and the train then is continuing on to Munich main station. Our train today is a Stadler Flirt of the Bayerische Regiobahn, same company like in the last video, but it's a different train and we will take a closer look. This is now the third Stadler Flirt of the Bayerische Regiobahn that we're taking a look at, and also again, this one is different. First, we're taking a look at the interior of this train. We can see a 2+2 configuration with standard seats that we can find in a lot of regional trains in Germany. There are tables, partly movable armrests. The seats are quite okay, but not too comfortable. But there are no other features like power sockets, for example. But you can find power sockets at a base of 4. There are 2 power sockets by the table. Here we are leaving Salzburg main station, and now we're going to Freilassing first. There I then filmed the last video, and then I went back to Salzburg, and then we're going to Munich. Sounds a bit complicated. I will explain it later on. Here we are crossing the river Salzach, and we can see the city center of Salzburg in the background, but just shortly, because here we have a train of the Westbahn Stadler Kiste, which I've made a video about just a few months ago. And just a few days ago I made a video about another train of the Westbahn, the Chinese CRRC Panda. Here we are in Freilassing, and here I'm now changing for the train to Berchtesgaden, which we have seen in the last video, and we can take a look at the arrival of another train to Salzburg. In the meantime, we're back in Salzburg. So let me explain why it's a bit complicated like this in this video. My original plan was to make one video where I go from Salzburg to Freilassing, then just simply make a little break for the next video and then continue on to Munich. But as you maybe seen in my last video, I had to change my plans, which meant that I had a quite long layover at Freilassing. And then there was a delayed train from Munich coming, going to Salzburg, which was then the train going from Salzburg back to Munich that I wanted to take. So I took this train to shorten my waiting time at the platform and instead sit in a nice air-conditioned train. So that's why I was going back to Salzburg and then on to Munich. But due to the border controls, in Salzburg we were then only allowed to use the last of the 3 trains coupled together. Therefore this part was extremely crowded, so I couldn't film any of the interior, and that's why I also included the first journey between Salzburg and Freilassing, and now we have the second journey between Salzburg and Freilassing, and here we now had a quite long waiting time because of the border controls. But it was quite smart, as all passengers from Austria were sitting in the last carriages. The border controls were much faster, and then later on also the first 2 cars were opened for the passengers, of course. If you're traveling between Salzburg and Freilassing, make sure to bring your passport, because there are quite strict border controls and every single passenger has to show a passport. Especially when you're coming from Germany, if you have the Deutschland ticket, the Germany ticket, you can go to Salzburg with this ticket, so probably you wouldn't think about taking a passport with you, but it's very necessary to have it with you due to the border controls that are happening with every single train in Freilassing. If you're traveling in this train, I would recommend sitting on the left side, because we are always close to the Alps, close to the mountains, and you can always see them on the left side. On the right side you will see a rather flat landscape. On the left side you have some very nice, beautiful views. This train is operated by the Bayerische Regiobahn, as I said, but it has a different livery, and that's because early on it was called the Meridian and got its own livery. Nowadays it's not operating under the brand name Meridian anymore, it's just operating as the Bayerische Regiobahn BRB, but still the livery stayed the same. On our way from Salzburg to Rosenheim, we're stopping at all stations as we're the only train operating on this railway line. Between Rosenheim and Munich we're stopping at no stations in between, because there are also some other trains, and then this is the fastest regional train on this route. Here we are stopping at Übersee, which is a quite interesting name because it means oversea in English. And then we are reaching Bernau, followed by Prien am Chiemsee. The Chiemsee is a lake, and the station and the lake are quite far away. There are about 2 kilometers between the station and the lake, and therefore there was a railway line built between the station and the lake at the point where the ships are going to the islands of the lake. And this railway line is still in use as a heritage railway line. We can see some of the carriages and one of the locomotives here at the station of Prien am Chiemsee. Here we can see the carriages, and in a second we can also see the locomotive. Some of the trains are still operated with steam locomotives. We're then going past the Simsee, and then we are slowly approaching Rosenheim, which is the most important stop in between with the most connections, and also our last stop before then going non-stop on to Munich. Here we're crossing the river Inn, and then we are approaching the station of Rosenheim. We were a bit delayed in the meantime. I had a very short layover in Munich. We left Rosenheim with a delay of a few minutes, so I was already getting a bit nervous, but in the end it turned out we arrived in Munich East well ahead of schedule, not only by 1 or 2 minutes, but we arrived in Munich more than 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so there seems to be some extra time in the schedule for any unexpected problems, but there were no problems, so we were arriving earlier than planned. That was quite good. And then there are 2 options. Sometimes when there are 2 stops in a big city, the second to last one is only to leave the train but not for boarding. In this case the train could have left earlier, but as it is also planned as a boarding stop, so new passengers can board the train here in Munich East to go to the main station, the train has to wait until the official departure time is reached. So the train was standing here for around 15 minutes, and therefore I decided to take the S-Bahn instead to save a bit of time and arrive at the main station a bit earlier. But unfortunately there was a fire alarm at the S-Bahn station of the main station, and therefore I had to leave the train already at Karlsplatz 1 station earlier and had to run to the station. But I actually made my train in the last second, but it turns out one part of the train was broken and all passengers had to move to my part of the train, which also took quite a while. So in the end there was more than enough time. But this train ride is not too interesting, no new railway line and no new trains, so there will be no video about this one. In the next video we will take a look at a different type of transport. Here you can see when this video will be uploaded and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.